In 1985, the television series Mind Your Language briefly returned for a secret fourth season. 13 episodes were filmed cheaply at a college, but only one survives today. When the production company went bankrupt, creditors seized the master tapes, and the rest disappeared during liquidation. Historians believe those lost episodes were the most controversial of all, pushing racial humor further than anything that had already led to the show's cancellation in 1979. No one involved ever spoke publicly about what was in them. The story of Mind Your Language began in 1976 when writer Vince Powell, known for the provocative comedy Love Thy Neighbor, pitched a new sitcom to Michael Grade at London Weekend Television. Powell's idea was simple: a class full of immigrants learning English from a well-meaning teacher. The meeting lasted only 30 minutes, but Grade immediately approved it. At the time, Britain was facing rising immigration and racial tension. The National Front was growing, and newspapers were filled with stories of violence and protest. Amid such unrest, television executives believed a show that made light of cultural misunderstandings might attract huge audiences. The first version of the pilot episode was gentle and realistic, based on true language learning challenges. Test audiences, however, didn't laugh. Grade demanded more exaggerated characters and broader humor. Each student had to become a caricature of their nationality. The Pakistani and Sikh students would constantly argue, the Chinese student would quote Chairman Mao, and everyone would have an accent thick enough to define them. Powell had wanted to portray immigrants as real people with goals and emotions, but Grade told him that nice characters don't get ratings. Powell reluctantly gave in, keeping only the kind English teacher, Jeremy Brown, as a moral anchor. When Mind Your Language premiered in December 1977, it became an overnight success. Over 12 million viewers tuned in for the first episode, filmed before a live audience at South Bank Television Centre. Within weeks, it was one of the most watched comedies in the United Kingdom. By its peak, more than 18 million people were watching weekly, nearly a third of the country. The show's simple formula of misunderstandings, accents, and cultural stereotypes made it easy to export, and soon it was airing in over 25 countries, from India to Kenya, Malaysia, and South Africa. Yet the show's authenticity was questionable. Many actors were not from the countries they portrayed. George Kamel, born in Surrey, played Giovanni, a flamboyant Italian chef. Robert Lee, a Cambridge-educated Chinese actor, portrayed a Japanese businessman. Kevork Malikyan, a Turkish-born Armenian, played a Greek shipping worker. Only two of the main cast were actually from their characters' countries: Jamila Massey, who was Indian, and Anna Bergman, who was Swedish. Accuracy mattered less than exaggerated accents that audiences could easily recognize. Despite its popularity, the show sparked growing unease behind the scenes. Barry Evans, who played Jeremy Brown, began to question the direction of the series. He worried that the jokes were crossing lines, turning genuine people into punchlines. Albert Moses, who played Ranjit Singh, later recalled that Evans sometimes refused to say certain lines, forcing reshoots. Writers fought constantly over how far to go with racial humor. When Britain's campaign against racism in the media condemned the show in 1978, London Weekend Television made minor edits but continued airing it. The budget was tight, just $15,000 per episode, so production was rushed. Continuity errors, accent slips, and mispronunciations filled the show. To make the accents seem authentic, the producers hired dialect coaches, spending more than $35,000 in total. Ironically, actors were trained to sound less realistic and more exaggerated, and some struggled to return to their real voices afterward. Viewer complaints increased. More than 200 letters reached ITV in the first 2 seasons alone, though executives dismissed them as oversensitivity. That changed after the 1979 Christmas special, What's in a Name?, in which a Sikh and a Muslim character exchanged insults about religion and identity. The scene provoked hundreds of complaints within hours and a formal protest from the Commission for Racial Equality. ITV quickly removed the scene from reruns, and Michael Grade, once a defender of the show, privately called it a relic. By early 1980, Mind Your Language was quietly cancelled, not because ratings fell but because the social climate had shifted. 5 years later, in 1985, an independent company called TRI Films revived the show for a low-budget 4th season. Barry Evans returned as the only original cast member, while new actors played the students. 13 episodes were completed, but when TRI Films went bankrupt, the master tapes were seized by creditors and lost. Only one episode, titled 50 Years On, remains. According to historians, those lost installments pushed racial humor even further, and perhaps it was for the best that they vanished. Evans's later life was tragic. Once a popular actor in the Doctor in the House series, he struggled to find work after being typecast as the gentle teacher. By the 1990s, he was working as a taxi driver in Rugby, living alone and largely forgotten. Friends later said he had struggled with depression and hid his bisexuality for fear of ruining his public image. In February 1997, he was found dead in his home under mysterious circumstances, his taxi stolen and phone lines cut. The case was never solved. Academic research in later decades revealed that Mind Your Language misrepresented language learning almost entirely. Linguists analyzing hundreds of jokes discovered that 80% of the students' mistakes were impossible in real life. The writers invented errors for comic effect rather than authenticity. Spanish speakers, for instance, would never confuse vowel sounds the way the character Juan did, and the show's repeated joke about Chinese speakers mixing up R and L was exaggerated beyond reality. Teachers reported that the show encouraged harmful stereotypes about foreign learners. According to surveys by TESOL, over 70% of ESL instructors said it negatively affected how their students were treated. Many learners from South Asia began avoiding questions in class to avoid being mocked. By the late 1980s, the program had become a case study in how comedy could reinforce prejudice. Scholars like David Johnson and Sarita Malik began teaching it as an example of othering, turning people from different cultures into figures of ridicule. The structure always placed the white British teacher at the center, surrounded by foreigners portrayed as confused or foolish. In this setup, laughter came at the expense of those trying to fit in. Despite controversy, the show's influence spread worldwide. 11 countries produced their own versions. India's Zaban Sambhak, airing from 1993 to 1998, reversed the roles by having a Hindi teacher instruct foreign students. The American adaptation, What a Country, ran for one season in 1986 but failed with critics who found it tone-deaf. Malaysia's Oh My English revived the classroom formula in 2012, but faced bans over religious content. Streaming platforms later tried to quietly manage the show's legacy.